Well, human beings naturally look for security, and it was for us. Perhaps we look for security in maybe in our bank balance, in the things that we can buy or not buy, in the reputation amongst our peers and our colleagues. We look for security in all kinds of different places. I'm sure it would be different for each one of us. For Israel, they were tempted to look for security in human figures to rule them, someone, a king to look up to, who would rule over them. And the question with wherever we look for security, whether Israel looking for it in a king or for us in our things that we might look for security in today, the question is, will these things actually save us and help us, or will they make life worse? Will they drain everything from us? Will they in the end destroy us? That was the question for Israel's king. Deuteronomy 17 verse 14. These verses would become really important later on in the history of Israel when we come to the first book of Samuel, and Israel asked for a king, and it turns out this has been predicted in advance by Moses. Verse 14 of chapter 17 in Deuteronomy: when you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you and have taken possession of it and settled in it, and you say, let us set a king over us like all the nations around us, be sure to appoint over you the king the Lord your God chooses. And what Moses then goes on to show them is that there is a difference between the king they think they want and the king they actually need. There's a difference between the king they want and the king they need. The king they want will look impressive like the kings of the nations around them. And they're looking around thinking, we want the security that comes from those nations, from the kings like the nations around us. But do not place a foreigner over you, one who is not a brother Israelite. In other words, don't model yourself on the nations around you. Don't choose one of them to be your king. Because understand that this type of king that you want is going to be one who takes and does not give. So he's going to acquire great numbers of horses and make the people go to Egypt to get more. He's going to take many wives. He's going to take large amounts of silver and gold. And this turns out to be the kind of king they eventually get in King Saul. But instead, Moses says, you need to get, what you need is a different type of king. What you need is a king who isn't like that. What you need to understand is that you need the king that the Lord your God chooses for you. Because actually one of the main things they will have realised by the time it comes to 1 Samuel is that the king they actually need is God himself. He's the king that they already have. And one of the reasons God is displeased when they ask for a king is because they're implying that they haven't got one. And they do have one in him, but he wants to give them a king, but a different kind of king from the type that they might have gone for. So verse 18, take the kind of king who will learn to revere, verse 19, the Lord his God, and follow carefully all the words of the law and the decrees, not consider himself better than his brothers and turn from the law to the right or the left. Then he and his descendants will reign a long time over his kingdom in Israel. And so that's the kind of king that they need, one who's going to serve, not one who does not come to be served, but to serve, one who lives obediently to the law. And that is the kind of king that God's people get to some extent in David as God's choice, who listens to him, but even he is not perfect and he fails. But it is the king that God's people get in Jesus. The king that we think we want is the king like the other nations. We think we need the security of our non-Christian friends around us. We think we need the security of the job and the house and the money and the bank balance and the health and the wealth. And we think that's going to solve all our problems. That's not the king that we need. In the end, those things, if we live for them, they will destroy us. Because what we will find if we go after them and live for them and make them the be-all and end-all is that they let us down. They don't do what they promise. They don't get us through death into eternity. And so what we need, therefore, is a king who has given himself, given himself up so that we can be friends with him forever through death into eternity. He is a king who will not let us down. He is a king who has obeyed perfectly, who's given himself for us on the cross, and in whom is life that lasts forever. He's the king that we need. So let's go with him